I love how we can have this ability of looking upon something that's horrible and finding a ray of gospel in it. Of course, in this case, we're looking at St. Stephen. But this terrible time, and all of a sudden we see, well, this is the glory, because everything in the mystical world is turned up on its head. When we go through difficulties, we find transcendence. We find God at the end of it. We find God in the presence of it. It's Jesus walking along the journey with us as we go through these things. In fact, it is so close to our encountering Christ that it starts to resemble Jesus' story itself. You ever heard that owners start looking like their dogs because they're around them so much? Or when you're married and you start picking up euphemisms that your wife or husband speak, we start sharing those characteristics, and we start even falling into the same patterns in how we do things in our lives. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you look at the story of St. Stephen, and you don't have to look too far, all of a sudden you see coming through it the story of Jesus Christ. If you look at the full story of Stephen, it matches up with Jesus' story of Holy Week. For example, let me read something to you. This is at the beginning of this, and it's not mentioned here in our reading. And tell me what this sounds like to you. Stephen, first of all, he says, at the end of this, he says, "Behold, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God," okay? He's just had this long discourse. He just scolded the religious leaders for a long tirade about how they always reject the saviors that God sends. They rejected the prophets, and now they've rejected the Son of God, the Messiah. They missed it. And they're grinding their teeth and going, "Arr, arr, arr," like this. But then he looks up and says, "Look, I behold the Son of Man standing on the right side of God." Listen to what Jesus says to the very same people probably 3 years earlier. "From now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Jesus was coming for Stephen, but he was also showing Stephen the very end of time when the Lord will come back. He's being prepared for that. Listen to what it says in the book of Acts. "Then they instigated some men," they, meaning these people that were arguing with him, "they stirred up the people, the elders and the scribes, accosted him, seized him, brought him before the Sanhedrin. They presented false witnesses who testified, 'This man never stopped saying things against this holy place and the law, for we have heard him claim that this Jesus the Nazarene will destroy this place and change the customs that Moses handed down.'" The exact same accusation for which Jesus was crucified. Lastly, one other thing I wanted to show you. As they're stoning him, and it says here, of course, he says, "Receive my spirit," as he's dying. But then, we miss the last sentence. Listen. "Then he fell to his knees, Stephen, and cried out in a loud voice, 'Lord, do not hold this sin against them.'" What did Jesus say on the cross? "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." If you are so close to Christ that you're meditating on him and you're always relating your life to him, what's going to come out? Jesus. We live, we breathe, we drink, we eat, we walk with Jesus. He's in our hearts, he's in our minds, he's always around us. And so if we can have that connection with God, when you speak, it will be God speaking through you. God will give you what you need, because all you are doing is reliving the life of Christ within you. That's the calling, is to be Jesus. Please stand.